All right. I'm super excited about this call. So, Rhonda, I got to meet you a little bit at Palooza, which was awesome. But how about you introduce yourself, how long you've been here, and tell your story to us?
Okay. So my name is Rhonda Glanzer. I am originally from South Dakota. I grew up on a farm ranch, and my dad and brother still work it today. I am a small animal veterinarian. I live in Winnie, Texas, which is about an hour from Houston. I barrel race. I volunteer. I'm active in my church. So I'm on the go all the time. So I got into this business, and I'll kind of just tell a little bit of my story. Beginning of 2015, I was struggling with my weight. At that time, I was doing emergency medicine. So sometimes I work nights, sometimes I work days, sometimes I pulled 24, sometimes I did silly things and was up longer than that. But to say my schedule was erratic is an understatement. And I just thought that being tired was normal. I really didn't think, honestly, didn't think anything of it. I lived on Mountain Dew, but I was about to bust out of my pants in my scrubs. And like, I just envisioned bending over into the exam room to help pick up a dog and hearing the rip as my butt was showing. Now, thankfully it didn't happen, but like, that's how tight my scrubs were, just to give you a mental image. Um, my friend Meredith, who's a pastor's wife, mom of five, started posting about Thrive stuff. And I thought she was crazy, y'all. But then one of the things she said was weight loss. So while I thought she was crazy, she had my attention. And so I reached out to her, and she told me about it. And I was really interested, but literally I had just ordered about 6 weeks of a different product system that I had been on. And I just couldn't see wasting my money. Now, I want to be honest here, y'all. I was in a different position than a lot of people, because I know for a lot of people, it was buying Thrive was a big financial commitment and you were sacrificing something. I had that income that I could use that as I could do that. That wasn't an issue, but I couldn't see spending the money when I had all this other product. I thought that was a waste. So I told my friend, well, as soon as I get rid of this, I'm going to order. And she was gracious and said, okay. But for the next 24 hours, I dwelt on the thought that she felt amazing and I felt like crap. And I've been taking this stuff, and it was too many steps. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I could not take the other system correctly to save my life with my schedule. But I'm like, what's the worst I have to lose? And my answer was 6 weeks of this other product that I would figure out what to do with if this other stuff worked. I was skeptical. Why? Because I was already on a system that didn't work. So I ended up signing up as a promoter on day one with truly the intent of maybe sharing with a couple of people, because I knew my sister-in-law would do it. And I had a couple other friends that had been talking about wanting to lose weight. So I figured if the company was paying somebody, since it was free to be a promoter, why not me? Y'all, I did not hit promoter for the business. I mean, I really did. It was for the couple extra bucks, because y'all, I have horses. I can spend more money, no problem. So day one, I love the simplicity. Day three, I was up before my alarm clock. I was ready to rock and roll. I didn't need to hit snooze. I didn't need to drink Mountain Dew, which is what I lived on. I had this energy that lasted all day. By day 10, my clothes was getting a little bit looser. But for me, I remember telling Meredith the weight loss I no longer cared about. The energy I had, I was feeling better at 38 than I was probably since my mid 20s, probably since vet school. And I remember thinking, where were these products when I was in vet school and needed that energy and focus? So I have been thriving just over 8 years. I will still tell you without a doubt, energy is my favorite part. As I said, when I hit the promoter button, I wasn't running. So I didn't hit VIP 400, 800, no, 600, 800, whatever they were called back then, 800 and 1600, because that really wasn't my goal. But as I got on the product, I kind of started sharing. And I really, once again, was not looking for the business, but it came. But it was when I hit my auto bonus 7 months later that I think the light bulb finally went off for me, that this really could be something. And once again, I really still wasn't looking for it, but I decided I really liked that auto bonus, because this girl, Ford girl here, who had been driving a Mustang for almost a year that had the back end dented because somebody drove into me when I was parked someplace, decided it was time to upgrade and got her a Cadillac. So started driving in style. And anyway, that was kind of how I got into the business side of it. And kind of, I mean, while I was sharing those first few months, I think that was one for me. It was like, wow, this is legit. I actually hit the second rank and I got this auto bonus.
That's amazing. Okay, so I have to ask, when you started your Thrive journey, what I know it was a lot different, right? How they had the products, how things were set up. So what was it like when you got started? What were the packs like?
So when I started, there was like on the promoter side of things, I think there was a 100, a 200, a 400, and an $800 pack. But like I remember I bought the $100 pack that had capsules and one box of shakes, and then I bought the patches as an add-on. Okay. And so like back then, they said you only had to do a shake like 4 days a week. And so for the first month, that's what I did because that was what I was told. But I very quickly realized that the days I didn't have my shake, I was hungrier sooner. And just, I don't know, I didn't feel the same. So I can tell you on month 2, I just said, I'm going to buy the extra box of shakes because I can and I want it.
That's amazing. So I definitely have to ask. So what was that click for you? Like you talked about 12K. So I'm kind of curious, what in that 7 months, what were the things that were you doing? Like, were you like sharing a like word of mouth with people? Like how were you like talking about it?
So I will say both word of mouth and social media. I know when I first started, so some of you may or may not know Brittany Williams. She's not really an active promoter, but she would have been the upline above me who, not direct, but close. Like for, if you know Susan and Lindsay, she was Lindsay's level 1. Okay. But she was doing a ton of promos all the time because she blew up her business. And so there were always promos. So there was always a post about this promo, that promo. And it was just one of those, you just kept throwing it out there. And back then it was, I'll say, so much newer. And I guess I feel people bit easier on posts like that, I feel, than they do now. And maybe part of that is the economy. But it was one of those, I was having the visible weight loss results. So there were some conversations that came naturally because people could see the difference. And then there was the, using Facebook back then, just Facebook. And I wouldn't even say I used it well, but I used Facebook.
That's true. And it's really crazy. Just even like 2 years, even with social media, so much has changed with it. And with your business, what is a lesson that you've learned that you try to showcase to your team? That you learned, I guess you could say early on, or maybe like 5 years in?
I still will give samples away, but they have to have at least done a 3-way chat. They have to have an account that they logged into. I might create the account for them, but I need you to go here and click on this and tell me if you could log in, and they get a 3-way chat versus back then. I would just send stuff out, and part of it, I probably didn't do the follow-up either because I didn't know all the stuff, or there just wasn't, I felt that I sent a lot of samples out the door, which is why I still have a love-hate relationship with samples, because there are some times they pan out and they're wonderful. But then when somebody, oh, well, I want the sample. Well, I can't take it because of health issues. Well, why did you click that you want? Why did you tell me you wanted one and go through the trouble of approving it? And I had one recently who did that, and I had sent her a 6-day. And I asked for it back. She didn't send it, and I'm not going to bug her, but it's just trying to do some stuff up front. And I'm starting to add in the verbiage. I need you to start this within 48 hours. Are you willing to do that? Because I don't like to see my stuff set because it's a waste.
I really like that actually, because it kind of creates that urgency. Like you have something amazing on your hands. Like don't wait to take it. And I can definitely attest to that. Like I've had so many people like in that communication, but there's like no response. And sometimes like people won't follow up with it, or there's people who a month later decides to try it, right? And then they come back like, oh my gosh, I feel absolutely amazing. Like I can't believe it took me this long, you know? I definitely would love to hear some, I guess, some life lessons you've learned with this business and things that you can instill to. We have a few gals who are new, and you know, some things that you feel is important for them to know, something that they that can help them in the starting of this business.
Okay. Um, I'll say a couple of things. One, I'm going to be honest because that's just my personality. There are times this business is going to be hard. You're going to feel like you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're putting in the work, and you're hearing crickets. I can tell you, I remember I had a season, I don't know what year this was, but I remember having about 3 to 4 months. I don't think I could give away Thrive if I wanted to. I mean, it was tough and it was discouraging. And there was a couple of months. So my highest rank was 80K, and I hit that in 2017 when they were doing a rank advancement bonus. About 4 months later, see y'all, a lot of you are from the Northwest, so this life event did not affect you, but I'm from the South. We have these things called hurricanes. I did not have those growing up in South Dakota, but I have learned about them. But in 2017, we had Hurricane Harvey. My house flooded. I was displaced for months. Thankfully, I have good friends and was living 10 minutes down the road. So, I mean, it was just an inconvenience in my life. But at that time, my number one promoter, she's the person who she worked in for a vet pharmaceutical company, well, for a couple of them, and she would be like top 3 in the country for the year. And she's what helped get me to 80K. And she didn't flood. She fell off the wagon. So I don't really understand how the flood made her quit. But I mean, it just coincidentally timing, that was, when that happened. So you're going to have people who come, you're going to have people that go, and you're going to have people like my friend Melissa, who I don't understand why she left, because she could have been a 200K, and by default that would put me there too. But be prepared. People are going to come, people are going to go, people are going to be really excited and then do nothing. Know that there are some ups and downs, that just part of this business. But the biggest thing I'll tell you is you have to be consistent. The other piece of advice, and I'll say part of this is related to Thrive, because I know that there's people on your team who have earned bonuses recently, and who are running for bonuses currently. Manage your money. I will tell you, when I hit that 80K, I only got like the first 4 or 5 payments before my numbers dropped, but I used that money to pay off my car. And so when I flooded, I had a title and I could get all the money. And I'm not saying that the money still wouldn't have gotten to me, but it just was a process. But I'm also a Dave Ramsey person. So I'll tell you, if you're struggling financially, you've got to do something different if you want different results. And if you make more but keep blowing it, it does not fix your problem. Just being honest here, people. You've got to learn how to do a budget. Dave Ramsey is who I follow. He's got some great principles. And I'll just say this, if y'all need to chat and have questions, I'll answer those, because I've done he has what's called Financial Peace University, and I've taught that class at my church a couple of times. So I'm equipped to teach too. But use these bonuses as a way to make your financial situation better. Don't just say, I earned $12,000 bonus, I'm going to go buy a $10,000 toy. You're probably going to be in the hole, because Uncle Sam's going to want some taxes, and it's going to put you in a bind. And so that's not something, and I mean, legally, the company cannot talk about that because of just issues there. But as somebody who has taught the class, who has had more debt than I want to admit, Now, it was student loans. There was a couple of vehicles. It was a house note. But I can tell you, I remember being 1 year out of school, buying my house and doing the math, and I was $250,000 in debt. $225,000 in debt. It was overwhelming. I will tell you, I dug, I worked hard, I managed, I did without some things. And I will tell you what this does is it puts you in a place of freedom later. Do you have to sacrifice now to get there? Yes. But here's what I can tell you. When I started Thrive, I was still doing emergency medicine. I was still doing the equivalent of a half-time, part-time job on top of my full-time emergency medicine. I can tell you I don't do emergency medicine. I get to sleep all night. Well, now that my horse's eye is being cooperative, well, semi-cooperative at best, but I get to sleep all night long again. I am working less now than I ever have in my life. It gives me a little more flexibility. It gives me time to travel. It gives me time to go visit my family. My dad's 82. He's not getting any younger. It gives you time to do the things that really are important in life. But if you are still paycheck to paycheck, you don't get that luxury of freedom. So my biggest encouragement, and especially because I know there's people on here who can relate to these bonuses, earn those suckers, but utilize them to better your position.
I love that, especially exactly like how you said, like you have the control within you, but you have to make that choice, what direction that you're going to go into, what's going to benefit you long term. And I can relate to that paycheck to paycheck life. I was telling the girls at Palooza about when my daughter's 7, so 7 years ago, we were paycheck to paycheck, and my husband was bringing home bi-weekly $800, and that's what we were living off of. And I don't know how we did it. We wouldn't be able to do it now, but looking at the consistency, I can tell you, like what Rhonda's telling you, being consistent, it does pay off. Even though you might be going through those low times, but during those low times, I feel like it's where those lessons are being taught. But if you're not open to those lessons, you're not going to understand what you were meant to go through. And if you're not seeing that or believing that for yourself, that you can go through those things, it's waiting for you down the road ahead of you. Don't know when, but so with vet school. So how long have you been a vet? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
I graduated in 2002, so I have been practicing for 21 years.
That is incredible. So you work in so not more than like a 9-to-5 job. So kind of like depending what your like schedule was. How did you navigate the business? How did you find the time? What did you do?
I will tell you that when I first started, or I'll say kind of when I was getting close to that 12K, and then there was a time where I really didn't watch my TV and I questioned why I was paying Dish or Direct, whoever I had. But it was one of those, I learned that I could not come home and watch TV. If I had downtime at work, which sometimes I did, I was trying to send out a couple of messages. If I had the off day, I had to put in a lot more work on my off day. Now, I still had to do some sleeping because when you work nights, at some point your body says go to sleep. But the biggest thing is it was, the time management. It was trying to figure out if there were things. And once again, I'm on the go. So if I'd be at a barrel race, I would always have some downtime. And this is still true today. Like I had a 2-day race this weekend. I did a little bit of stuff Saturday in my trailer after I was done running. And I did some more stuff Sunday morning because kind of once the race starts, it's go time. And I don't really have time to get on the phone. But it was one of those, I was still getting up at 5 a.m. when I was at a weekend barrel race. I would take care of the horses and I would have some time in the morning before I had to get on and run. And so it it is a balancing act. But the biggest thing I can tell you, if you block out time and you say, I'm going to focus for 10 minutes or I'm going to focus for 20 minutes, you can get a lot done in a short amount of time. If you say, okay, right now I'm going to do 10 reach outs, or I need to go do my follow-ups for who has the next auto ship order. You just have to be very intentional with your time.
I love that, especially being time management. I feel like that's like the key of all things is managing your time. We all have plenty enough time in our day. It's just, how are we using it? Are we thinking we're doing the work, or are we doing the superficial things and not the things that count the most within your business, like the follow-ups, like those reach outs, those connections, being more intentional with what you're sharing on your social media. And the biggest thing that I can say, especially talking to people face to face, I feel like the conversation goes a lot faster versus on social media. Plus, the one thing that I gotta love about it the most is people get to see your excitement. They get to hear your voice, and they can rattle questions off back and forth. And before you know it, they're like, okay, how do I sign up? Like, how do I get this? And the biggest thing is, if it's your first sale, I do have to say it's okay to get really super excited and like you want to help them get started. It's okay to feel that excitement. And I feel, we don't want to word vomit, right? But with practice, you are going to get better with the way that you share, with how you walk people through things, all of it. But if you're scared to make that step, all I have to say is run, because once you get through that first hurdle, it's going to be like this aha moment for yourself. Like, okay, like that wasn't so bad as I thought it was going to be. And I feel like we kind of put this blanket in front of us, like it's more complicated than it needs to be, but it really isn't. I feel like we're the ones that complicate it the most. But when you are like what Rhonda's talking about, like she was just sharing about her journey, sharing about her weight loss, and people have that connection more versus like, oh, this does X, Y, and Z, like factual things, right? Versus, okay, I'm taking this 3-step and this is what's doing for me. Like my sister-in-law, she started this and this is what her story is. And I've got more people with that connection. Would you say that too, Rhonda?
I agree. There's something about face to face that I'm going to say it's more personal. And I mean, I'm thankful for social media because I have people who I've never met in person who are thriving. But when you have that connection, and sometimes some of those people you're face to face with, you're seeing again face to face, be it at work, be it at your church, be it at your barrel race, be it at whatever your hobby is. But you can go have those conversations. And the nice thing is when you're having those in public, sometimes there's other ears that are listening and they're like, hey, what are you talking about? Yeah. And so it's one of those, there's also that advantage. You can have some eavesdroppers on your listening to you.
That's so true. I remember the first time I ever brought it up in my workplace. And I was so nervous because the woman that I was speaking to, she is a paramedic. And so she was talking about how exhausted she was. Every day I would see her with Red Bulls, pop. She's a smoker. And she's like, gosh, I'm like so exhausted all the time. And I'm like, and I had my patch. And when you're out in public, I just have to say, put it in a place where people can see. The one place I have to tell you that I've gotten the most, like people are like, what is that? Someone thought it was a tattoo. And I wear it on my bicep right here. I don't know what it is, but every time when I wear it right here, people are like, what is that? So then it gets the door open, like, you don't know about this? And they kind of look at me like, should I know about this? And anyways, this paramedic, I just told her like, hey, like, I have dealt with hardcore tiredness because I have a chronic illness. And I'm like, I've never felt this good in 12 years. And she's in the, when I told her, because her knowing about autoimmune diseases, she's like, what is it? And so I told her about it. She was like, how do I sign up? And sometimes people are quick like that. Some people are very like, well, let me mull it over. Let me like check these things out. There's a massive bumblebee that just flew into my room. So if you see me flying around, don't worry. I'm fine. I'm just trying to catch it. But I would love if you guys have like questions for Rhonda, unmute yourself. This is the best time. I'm just so excited. Like you've been thriving for so long, and I just think it's amazing to be able to meet someone like you who has been here for this long and still thriving and working the business and loving it and still sharing it. I think that's so inspirational.
Well, thank you. So the biggest thing, and I'll say this too, I'll use the word stickability. You have to stick with this when it gets tough. And it's going to, and it's probably not going to happen just once. It's probably going to be more than that. But I can tell you, have I hit 200K yet? No. Will I? One day I will. I'm waiting for that one person to help. I got one red leg. I just need to get balanced. But, it's one of those, you just have to stick with this. Because I want to do some quick math for you. Just an auto bonus is $800 a month. That's $600 a year. That's just for being at 12K. That's not commissions. That's just auto bonus. So just do that math and say, okay, well, even if I don't get to 200K, even if I stay at 30K or at 15K, I still have that much every month. That is still substantial. And you need to take advantage of that because this company has some good stuff coming. And I'm really excited to see what they have to share with us at Cabo. Because there's more big stuff coming and they're setting us up for success.
That's so true. I don't know. Ever since I've been with this company, October 2021, they just keep rolling out with stuff. And I feel like, okay, is it going to die out? But honestly, I don't see it. Looking back 10 years since the company's been here, I cannot believe I've never heard of Thrive. There's still people out there that have never heard of Thrive. So if you feel, well, I talked to Susie Joe over here and she tried Thrive a while ago and she didn't like it. And my friend over here tried it many years ago and didn't like it. Keep on going. Like, it's okay. Because I bet you anything, they're going to watch you and then they'll be coming back and be like, okay, let me try that again. Because usually that's what happens. Does anybody have any questions? Any? Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. So I heard you, I feel so often that when we hear from leaders, higher up in the company or just guest speakers in general, we often hear, we never hear the experience where they came in and they were financially stable. Normally it's somebody came in because they needed the money or, it was a stretch to buy their pack or stuff like that. So I have two questions. One, just in your business, how did you make this shift from, because obviously you didn't come in necessarily to run with the business. How did you make that shift to building your team? And then also, how did you talk about the opportunity and present it when it wasn't a financial struggle that caused you to dive in?
Because, hang on, my dog was, do you want to come in? Y'all got to bear with me. I got to see if my dog needed in. He was barking. Hey, you coming? Yes, no. I'm sure he'll be back at the door in about 10 seconds. Yep, here he comes. Because I have taught the Dave Ramsey, and while I was, I'll say, financially stable to buy the product, I still can tell you I was also a broke college student for many years, and I was a poor veterinarian when I graduated. Okay, y'all, this is Straight. Say hi, Straight. So it's one of those, it's still the, I understand the budget, so using the, I can relate to this, and for the most part, because this is very intimate, I shared that. I don't tell people what I'm sharing my story. But it's one of those, I know everybody has a budget, everybody has to prioritize. I know money's tight. So saying that I can relate to that, I have something that can help you with that. And I feel there was part of a question I did not answer. So what did I miss? What did I leave out?
The second part was just how did you make the shift of just coming on, loving the products, and being willing to make some additional money to actually running with the business and building a team?
I would say that was I continued to share and trying to, continuing to try to find people who who you can get to see the vision, who are willing to do the work. I've had a lot of people, and I'm sure some of you might relate to this, who say, "Oh, I want this," but they won't post. They won't communicate as well as they need to really try to do it. And so it's just, continuing, to try to, they say, run with those that run, walk with those that walk, and the rest who don't want to come, you can't drag them. And I really struggled with that because I'm like, but you want this, but you want this. But there came a point when I had to tell myself, I can't want it and see it more for them than they see it for themselves, because it's not working. And so, I mean, I have one person who has hit 12K a couple different times. She went on, I took her on one of the getaways with me because I thought that was going to be like I'll say, seal the deal. And and I know she's financially struggling, and she says, I see it, the business is there, but yet the work to go with it is not there. And so it's just, it's so frustrating, because I guess I'm just one of these people who I just go and get stuff done. And I think that's my farmer girl background, because on the farm, it was this has to be done. You do it. That was just, that's how it was. And I think part of it is a mentality and a mindset, and finding the person with the right mindset is the key.
You really hit something on the nail right there, Rhonda. You really have to, I feel like when people come into this kind of business is, I'm just going to be making all this money. It's just going to happen. But the one thing that I've learned is you go through so much about learning about yourself, to your weaknesses, to your strong suits. But I feel like when those weaknesses hit, if you're willing to recognize them and build from them, to work on them, not feeling that you're a failure, because we all have weaknesses, we all have strengths. Sometimes we don't know what they are. But if we're not giving ourselves the chance to go discover those things, we're never going to know. And it, like Rhonda was saying, like you have to want it for yourself. Like, there are side sisters, so many mentors on this team that are here for you. But if you are not reaching out, asking the questions, your team, your mentors, they're not going to know what's going on. Because you have to understand too that everyone they have their own business, but we're helping each other at the same time. So when you're not asking the question, or someone's not asking the question for you, I guess in a way, because we all go through kind of the same route, I guess you could say, of within this business, of learning things. Do you guys see that? But I just have to say is, if you want this, you will find a way, and you will discover that those excuses are just, you guys, I'm so sorry. This bumblebee, I've already got it once out of my house. I don't know how it got back in.
Kill it.
It's about to. I just got to find my husband's boot. But I just have to say is, if you have questions, if you have struggles, reach out, ask the questions. And before you know it, it's going to click, like, okay, like this is what I need to work on, versus, okay, I'm going to try to eat the whole buffet. Don't eat the whole buffet, because you're just going to get overwhelmed and you're going to get sick, right? So you have to focus on one thing at a time. And when I have to tell you this, I can't remember who I was talking to. Actually, I was talking to one of my best friends here, and she's going through weight loss. And she made a comment about she's so scared about putting on the weight, which we can kind of relate this to the business about I'm scared to make that step because I don't want people to be talking about me. Or what if I take that step and I fail? But the fact is, if you don't take that step forward, like she's lost all this weight, she's afraid to gain that weight back. And she's afraid to get rid of all of her clothes that don't fit. But I told her, if you're not willing to get rid of those clothes, then it's a safety net. If you do gain the weight, then you have something to fall back onto. And that's not doing anything for you. You've worked this hard and you've lost all this weight. You should be celebrating that. Same with the business. Every time when you make that step forward and you started going live on social media or talking to random people that you would never do in the past, celebrate those things. Because if you don't take that time to celebrate that, and when you do hit that big achievement, you're not going to know how to celebrate. You're not going to know how important that really is because you didn't take that time for yourself along the way with those steps that you didn't celebrate. So that's one thing that I have to say. Do you have any last words, Rhonda?
The biggest thing I will tell you all is when I went on my very first getaway, it was to Las Vegas. What impressed me then, I saw again at Palooza, and I have seen it in between, but it is that we have a company that is willing, the leaders are willing to pray. And maybe I don't know what your faiths are, and I mean, that's fine. But for me, I know where my faith is. And to have leaders of the CEO, and I remember in Vegas because it was loud. I don't know how many people were there. It was probably the biggest getaway numbers wise that I've been at. And I just remember Paul saying, be quiet. And all of a sudden the whole room got quiet and he stopped and pre-prayed. And I'm just like, in today's society, you don't see that. So from the top down, we have leaders who care. We have leaders who believe. They're pouring into us. They've got crazy ideas, and I love it because it's all good. And they see a big picture, and we just get a little piece at a time. And it's like, oh, you are in the right place at the right time. There is an opportunity. Stick with it. Don't give up. If you have a day you're discouraged, if you have a week you're discouraged, talk to your upline. But the biggest advice I can give you is don't quit.
I love that. I just have to thank you again. Seriously, this was an awesome call. I really appreciate it. That's the one thing that I love about this company, like especially the people that we get to meet, is like this right here. Rhonda, she's not even any close to our organization, and she's taking the time to give us a lot of like life experiences and wisdom and things to think about and the things that she's seen and she's gone through. And I feel like I definitely have taken a lot from what you have said, and definitely going to be really instilling a lot more within my team because, if you're not willing to learn something along the way every day, you're going to be missing a lot of things that are meant for you. So my biggest thing is to not be so afraid because in the end, like it's going to be less scarier than you thought it was going to be. So other than that, I love you guys. Have an amazing evening and don't forget about Sunday Huddle. So thank you again, Rhonda. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Bye, everybody.